Center, don'tbebroke.com studios, KXST AM, North Las Vegas, KXTE HD3 Pahrump, Las Vegas, CBS Sports Radio, 1140, a radio.com station. The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbranson and Matt Gutierrez.
All right, happy Sunday. Welcome back to Silver and Black today on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM. Las Vegas is only, and it's the only all Raiders talk show here in the Valley. Others dabble in the Raiders, but we here, that's all we do. So we're here to talk Raider football every Sunday from 8 to 10. We're coming to you live from the Dollar Loan Center, don'tbebroke.com studios. I'm your host, Scott Gulbranson, founder and publisher, silverandblacktoday.com, joined by my equally astute co-host, Matt Gutierrez. Good morning, Matt.
What's going on, Scott?
How you been, brother?
Good, man. Look outside. Look at that.
I know.
It's so bizarre out there right now. You can see the fog rolling all over. We don't get crazy weather out here very often. Those of you that don't live in the area, it's pretty much just sunny and nice every day, unless it's a little hot. We've had some weird weather the last couple of days, and got up this morning heading in. You could barely see the strip driving past it. It's covered in fog. It's all the way to the ground. It's the craziest thing I've seen.
It is, and especially with the dryness here, we don't get a lot of fog, but it's here, and so it's what better time than to sit in, drink your coffee, listen on Raider football. We got a great guest today. Reminder, we're streaming today's show worldwide on radio.com on the app. If you don't have it, download it. It's phenomenal. Also, we stream the show via live video to our YouTube channel, so we're waving at the audience there now. Also, Facebook Live, Twitch, Twitter, you can follow it all there as well. Check out the website, silverandblacktoday.com. We cover the Raiders like no one else in Las Vegas, so make sure you head over and check it out. The Raiders season may be over, but it's our time to continue the conversation. This show never ends. There's still lots happening in Raider Nation, everybody. And, of course, with the NFL playoffs, so we'll help you as we hit football withdrawal, especially if you're a Raiders fan, right? Because what else do you have right now?
We've had that for about 2 months already.
Yeah, that's true as far as playoffs go. So we'll talk about that. Now, if we look at today's show in the first hour, one of our favorite guests is back, and that, of course, is former NFL general manager and now best-selling author Michael Lombardi, as he returns this time to talk about the hiring of Mike Mayock as the Raiders' new GM. So we'll talk to him about that. It's one you do not want to miss. Also, this hour coming up right after our first break, another one of our favorite guys, Moton, NFL writer from Bleacher Report, will call in. And Mo is someone, Matt, I love because he gives it to you straight. There's no BS, no drama, just logic and facts, which is why some Raider fans
The only way you can take CBS Sports Radio 1140 with you is the radio.com app.
Well,
download it today and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
They're just letting you know.
That's all.
Just letting you know.
That's our engineer, David Spani, just letting everybody know how you download the app. Anyway, so Mo will be here. He'll talk with us about the Raiders in 2018 and what he makes of the ups, downs, and all the drama that was this past season in Raider Nation.
And that's how it should be, right? Don't pull any punches. Why does anybody pull punches? Just tell it like it is.
Exactly.
As long as you're not being a jerk. Just tell it like it is.
I think in today's media too, Matt, there's a desire by some to have those that talk about or report about their teams to be just straight out fans. And I get that. There's amazing in Raider Nation, phenomenal fan podcasts and websites, and they're awesome. They're great. But that's not what we do here. So
yeah, I'm a fan, but I'm not going to blow smoke up anybody's butt to tell them that the Raiders are great and they're having a wonderful season and everything's fine when clearly it didn't work out that way.
That's right. Absolutely. Okay, so then we'll talk to Mo. That'll be fun. We'll close out the hour talking about yesterday and today's first round of the NFL playoffs. Matt and I were talking a lot pre-show about them because of the unfairness of the seedings in our mind. So we'll talk.
Somehow we got to the same point. We'll talk about it later, but somehow we got to the same.
We're there, even with our Super Bowl picks, which is pretty amazing. And we'll talk about yesterday, the Colts dominating down in Houston, and the almost remarkable comeback of the Seattle Seahawks, who had the worst offensive coached game I have ever seen.
And maybe the worst onside kick attempt
yes,
I've ever seen.
No doubt. My wife kept rewinding it, saying this is the worst kick I've ever seen. The second hour starts with Matt and I putting on our Swami hats. That's right. We're going to look ahead and make some fearless predictions about the Raiders in 2019. Not just wins and losses, but we're going to go all out on some limbs, and we'll take your calls at 702-889-5978. That's 702-889-5978. Then also in the second hour, silverandblacktoday.com's NFL draft analyst Kelly Kriner will be in studio with our first Way Too Soon Raiders mock draft. Kelly's one of those guys. He's all in. He's watching players all year round, and a funny dude, originally from Kentucky, so he's got a little bit of a drawl. We'll have fun with him. Will they go all defense in the first round? What about a quarterback? Or might they trade some of those first-rounders? But we'll get his view on that. We'll also have Matt's Audible, of course, and we'll give out our 2018 Raiders season awards. Yes, I'm calling them the Just Win Babies, although they didn't win awards. And so that'll complete the show. There you have it, Raider Nation. You're up to date. We've set topics on the table for you here on silverandblacktoday.com. Now it's your turn. Chime in. Want to hear it? The season's over. What did you think? Love Derek Carr? Hate Derek Carr? Somewhere in the middle? 702-889-5978. All right, Maddie. So one of the things that I want to start a little bit, just for sake of conversation, about Derek Carr, because I still do not understand.
It's terrible. Get rid of him.
Yes. I don't understand the mindset, because if you think that he's not going to be a quarterback that gets you to the Super Bowl, okay, I get it. He's still in the middle of the pack of the league. He's not 32nd in the league quarterback. Threw for over 4,000 yards. And there's some people, he doesn't fit in Gruden's system. Now, yesterday on Sports Adrenaline Show, David, you're going to queue up. There's a soundbite in there from Baldinger. So you guys had him on your show. What's his first name again?
Brian.
Jeez,
Baldy.
So you had Baldy on yesterday on the Sports Adrenaline Show, and you asked him the question, does Derek Carr fit in the system? Is he the right one for this team? And here's what he had to say.
Well, I do think he does. I mean, I think they fixed him a great deal this year. I mean, if you watch that game in London against Seattle, he looked broken. And at that time, Amari Cooper was, on the trading block, and it shipped Khalil Mack out, and people were questioning whether Derek Carr was going to be the next guy to go. And I don't know, over the last 8 weeks or 10 weeks, he didn't throw an interception. I mean, I think that was a big part of the turnaround. I thought he got a lot more aggressive throwing the ball, looked a lot more like he did in 2016 and 2015 towards the end of the season, going down the field a lot more, getting the ball out of his hands faster. I thought I saw a lot of that. I mean, John wants to run the ball. He wants to control the clock. He wants to use play action. I mean, it's pretty clear what he wants. They have to get better up front. They've got to find some more backs. But he wants to control it the way Dallas does, the way Seattle did, in a way Baltimore does, and then he wants to take his shots down.
Oh, there we go. So that was Brian Baldinger talking about Derek Carr and if he's the right fit for John Gruden's system. So, with all due respect to Raider fans who I love, and without them we don't have a show, I'll trust his opinion over a lot of them out there. But Matt, when you look at this, I get, if you can go get a better quarterback, fine. If suddenly Green Bay calls you and says, hey, we'll give you Aaron Rodgers for 2 number ones. Now, I know Aaron Rodgers is later in his career, but still, I get that. So you have a way to upgrade in a guy who's a surefire thing. Outside of that, I don't understand. The Raiders did not lose this year or last year, sans maybe a couple games, because of Derek Carr.
Here's what's so funny about it is I look at these people who they have all these quick fix ideas, right? Oh, well, they can just go out and draft this guy. Well, they can just go get this guy from this team. It doesn't work that way. You can't just go out and pluck whoever you want to pluck from, whether it's the draft, whether it's another team, trades, free agency. It doesn't work that way. You don't get to hand pick your quarterback. They have a guy in there right now that can get the job done. Derek Carr has been amazing in fourth quarter comebacks in his career already, just in the first 5 years of his career. That 2016 year when they went 12-4, 11 of those wins with Carr as a starter, all 12 of those wins, only 3 of the losses were because of when Derek Carr was a starter. How many comebacks did they have in that season? How many games did they win because of Derek Carr?
I agree.
I understand that Khalil Mack made some phenomenal plays that season. He had that great game against Carolina, but Carr led them back in that game. It's Derek Carr or bust with this team. And if you think they're going to go out and draft a quarterback this year or next year who's going to right away jump in there and be the next Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck or whoever you want to call him, it's not going to happen.
No, and I think I've said all along, and we've talked about it here too, Matt, which is, you give. People keep saying, well, how many times are you going to give him a chance? Well, I think you have to give him another year, number one. And I don't know what John Gruden and now what Mike Mayock think of him. They might not be convinced either. I don't know. That's something you don't know what's happening on the inside, right? You look from the outside in. It's a very different look and a very different view than when you're inside the organization and you see somebody practice every day. You see what their leadership capabilities are. You see what they're doing between them and their teammates and all that kind of stuff. So when you have that, to me, you have to give it time. So, and the Raiders, from a financial standpoint, there's nobody in this draft. I know a couple folks that are longtime viewers of ours and listeners love Andrew Luck or Drew Lock out of Missouri. I'm not convinced, but there's not a Tua. There's not a guy.
Is he better than Derek Carr right now?
I don't think so. Some people would argue.
How? How many snaps has he taken in the NFL?
Zero.
How many games has he played under John Gruden's system? How can you sit there and say a guy who's not even in the NFL yet is a better option than Derek Carr right now, who's throwing for 4,000 yards, mid-20s and touchdowns, and after week 5 didn't throw another interception until Jared Cook fell asleep in the middle of a route.
333 passes, passed for over 4,000 yards, and we're going to talk about that in our awards area later. 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. You always want a 2-to-1 ratio at the very least, and he pretty much delivered on that, except, that last one shouldn't even have been his, right? So we talk about that. But, yeah, so I don't understand it. I get I think the continuity is big. Juan on our YouTube page, he mentioned that, and I agree with you, Juan. It has to be some continuity there. There'll be some people who will never be convinced. I get it, and only time will tell. I don't see them taking a quarterback in the first round this year. I think next year's the quarterback year. And so if you want your team to win 4 games again next year and be in a position in the top 5 to draft a quarterback, then you'll be fine.
And you'll know after next season whether or not you need to go after a quarterback. If in year 2 of this system Derek Carr does not perform, which all signs point to he will be fine based on the way he closed out the year, the way he picked up this system. And let's not forget he did it with a pretty banged up, ineffective offensive line.
That's right.
All signs point to him being able to have a pretty good season in 2019. Does that mean that they're going to win 10, 11, 12 games? Probably not, because I don't think they have enough pieces and won't have enough pieces by then, but they're going to be a better team next year.
Well, and it's amazing, too. So the day that they had Mike Mayock in Alameda for the press conference to announce him, they asked him about Derek Carr, is he the franchise quarterback? It's a fine question. It's a good question. I forgot which reporter asked it. But that question in itself, it's like saying, hey, you just got a job. You're the first day on the job. What do you think of all your coworkers? Well, I don't know. I haven't met all of them. I haven't been around them. I haven't worked with them on a day-to-day basis. Now, Mayock's watched the league. He's seen Carr from the outside in again, but he has not seen him from the inside out. So you cannot make people playing it up like, see, he's not committed. BS. I mean, Raider fans, you have got to understand there's no better option at this point. I don't care what you say. Argue with me, 702-889-5978. I don't see it, Matt. I just think that maybe there is a quarterback out there that's going to be better than Derek Carr. That's fine. But right now, he's the guy, and you need to, I think, ride with him at least for the next 3 years.
I want to know how many of these people were out here saying this in 2016. 2016, I don't remember anybody talking about Derek Carr being the issue with the Raiders. Then he comes out in 2017, coming off with a broken leg, breaks his back in week 2, and plays with that all season long with all the turmoil and whatever else is going on in that locker room. And then you get a new coaching regime once again. He loses his best friend in the locker room, loses one of his top wide receivers midway through the season.
Yep.
Offensive line was a disaster all year. Marshawn Lynch gets hurt. Chris Warren III never even made it out of camp. I mean, come on, man. I don't know how you're going to put this all on Derek Carr. Did he have a great year overall? No. He finished strong. He started really poorly, but picked it up as he went. I mean, let's not act like this guy's out there, going the Peterman route. Which, by the way, he's
on the roster.
He's got to go. Yeah, you're right, that guy.
Well, we'll see what happens with that one. But when we come back, we're going to be joined by Mo Moton from Bleacher Report. He's going to talk to us about the Raiders season, put it into perspective. I love Mo because he doesn't care. He talks the talk, walks the walk. We'll give it to you straight without sugarcoating. but he's not overly negative either. He just gives it to you as it should be. So Mo Moton's coming back for the break. Then at the bottom of the hour, Michael Lombardi joins us, so don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
We're here with Chuck, founder of Dollar Loan Center. Hey, what about those who have applied for a loan with DLC in the past and been denied?
Great question. Unlike banks, we try our best to approve everyone. But the reality is that some people are going to be denied, and they have been. The good news is that everyone's situation changes. 2 years ago or even 6 months ago is a long time. Now you're on your job longer. Maybe you got a raise, paid off some other bills, who knows?
And after
CBS Sports Radio. Callers and guests on the Newsmaker line are brought to you by the Law Office of Michael A. Troiano.
This is Cliff Branch, formerly of the Oakland Raiders, 3-time Super Bowl champ, 4-time Pro Bowl, and you listen to the Silver and Black Show.
There's one of my favorite guys, Cliff Branch, who, how the heck is he not? I say it every time we hear him.
Hey,
how's he not in the Hall of Fame?
they got one on their way. Flores is right there now. He's finally on the doorstep. It took him long enough.
He better be. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So that was Cliff Branch. Thanks for bringing us in, Cliff. And we'll see what happens. Yeah, I don't anticipate Flores not getting in this time, but you just never know with the Hall of Fame. All right, we're going to go out now on our attorney Michael Troiano newsmaker line and bring in one of our favorite guys who tells it like it is, and that is Mo Moton from Bleacher Report. Mo, how you doing this morning, buddy?
Doing pretty good. Banging my head against seeing all these Derek Carr chase scenarios like you guys, but hanging in there.
Yeah, it was funny. We even retweeted a story from earlier in the year that it was Jason La Canfora's piece about how he'll be a New York Giant and they're going to trade for him in the combine, and the responses in between. I just retweeted. I just want to generate conversation about Derek Carr. Was hysterical because it's so polar opposite. But as Matt and I were talking at the beginning of the show, Mo, before you joined us, I don't understand what it is what that segment of Raider fans, what it is they want and what it is they think they can do with another quarterback. If it's Drew Lock out of Missouri, you're not going to have that guy come in next year and take you to the playoffs.
Yeah, you're right about that, but I think a lot of it has to do with the impatience. You look around the league, right, and you see these young quarterbacks flourishing. You see Patrick Mahomes doing what he's doing. Mitchell Trubisky, whose stats aren't great, but the Bears are in the playoffs with him at quarterback. And you see the young guys, the rookies coming in doing well. You know, Baker Mayfield playing well. Lamar Jackson's in the playoffs. Sam Darnold showed strides at the end of the year. A lot of Raider fans look at that and they say, well, Derek Carr's been around for 5 years, so what's going on with him? Why can't he show those type of strides? And again, we spoke about this when I was on the first time, is you have a system that constantly changes, you're going to have some hiccups. And Derek Carr, you know, he did have a great year in 2016, but people are saying, well, was that a fluke year? And quarterbacks don't just forget how to play football. I think
right.
You mentioned it earlier. He's a middle-of-the-pack quarterback, so he has to have pieces around him to flourish, has to have a strong offensive line, which he did not have this year, has to have a number one wide receiver who the head coach is going to be willing to use and target 10 times a game. Didn't have that with Amari Cooper, regardless of what you said about his attitude. Once he's gone to Dallas, I don't think he was targeted enough. And you just have to think about it in a holistic way instead of singling out Derek Carr and saying, well, why isn't he this MVP quarterback that he was in 2016? I think you have to look at everything in context.
I think the biggest thing you brought up there, Mo, was the offensive line play. When in 2016, that offensive line was known as quote unquote car insurance. They were dominant up front and pretty much never let Carr get touched until that fluky sack at the end of the season that broke his leg. But that has to be one of the biggest reasons, on top of the fact that he's in a brand new system yet again, that he hasn't been able to find the consistency in his play. But like you mentioned, the talent is obviously there. We've seen the talent. We've seen the fourth quarter comebacks. You know this guy doesn't get rattled back there, but everybody wants him out. It's almost as though they have forgotten about how horrific quarterback play has been from the time Rich Gannon broke his neck until the time Derek Carr actually got there.
Right. And again, I think it's just a matter of impatience. And people want it now. They don't want to see development. They don't want to wait for it. They want to see it now. And I think that's the wrong approach to take. And I think you guys mentioned this too. I made this mistake at the beginning of the year saying this is the critical year that Derek Carr has to show something. And what we didn't take into account was the fact that he has to absorb the system, go through the bumps and bruises. And I know people don't want to hear this, but going into the sixth year, I would say this is his critical year, right? He has to show that he's that quarterback that can bring this team to at least the playoffs. Because unless you're going to replace him with somebody who's better, and I think you guys mentioned this too, unless you're going to bring in somebody who's better, are you just punting on the 2019 season? Are you just rolling the dice on a rookie who has not played a snap in the NFL yet? How do you know Dwayne Haskins is better than Carr? How do you know Will Greer is better than Carr? Now, I know a lot of people are in love with Tua, but he's not coming out until 2020. Trevor Lawrence is already showing flashes. He's a freshman. He's not coming out until 2021 probably. Unless you're looking at those guys who look to have a great upside, why would you even consider a quarterback in this draft? And I think people just take a deep breath. I know the season was a disaster. 4-12. Take a deep breath. Just relax. Step away from it for a minute. Come back to it, and you'll see that patience actually pays off. And again, if he doesn't show anything or doesn't show much improvement next year in 2019 under Gruden in the second system, Gruden being the head coaching guru he's supposed to be, then
you go. Yeah, and to me that's the point as well. And you bring it up, which is, are they just a quarterback away from being a championship team? Absolutely not. And so I think that your point about people being in a hurry and the impatience, that is general life these days. You see it with just about anything that you encounter. I don't care if it's going to the grocery store or rooting for your NFL team. You start to see that. Now, Mo, again, we're talking to Mo Moton from Bleacher Report about the Raiders in 2018. We just finished talking about Derek Carr. What do you think, though, Mo, there's so many needs all over this roster, but going into the offseason, preparing for the draft, preparing for free agency, what is the biggest issue facing the Raiders for 2019?
Biggest issue, obviously, pass rush. You get rid of arguably the top pass rusher in the game in Khalil Mack. You got to eventually replace him. Arden Key, people mention this, he just was too small to rush off that edge and set an edge and get to the quarterback. I believe he listed as 6'5", 238 coming out of LSU. You just can't have a 238-pound defensive end in a 4-3 base defense. It's just not going to work. He's going to get swallowed up by those offensive linemen who are 300-plus pounds. Now, what you need to do is, again, you don't want to reach, per se. I know I had Cleveland Farrell as the number 4 overall pick without making any trades and moves, but you need to address that position. And if you're not going to go with Cleveland Farrell, Montez Sweat is the guy I think I would look at defensive end as a pass rusher to shore up that part of the defensive line. Also, your linebacking core, I don't think any of the linebackers that played this year have really solidified themselves as a starting linebacker. I know Markel Lee showed some strides on the strong side. Tahir Whitehead started playing well at the end of the year. He got his prorated bonus, so chances are he's going to be back on the roster. But you need an upgrade in your linebacking core, and it seems like that's been a perpetual problem. They need to finally address that now that they had these extra picks in the first round. I know Garrett Conley and Carl Joseph played well. It's funny because these are Reggie McKenzie guys that were on a trade block, in the middle of the year, but I think they're fine. But you need a free safety. I think you go out in free agency and you get a guy like Clinton Dix to address that.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to bring back Darryl Worley opposite Garrett Conley, that's fine too. You got Nick Nelson who could probably play the slot, who's a rookie right now, but they have needs at every level of the defense, and of course Derek Carr needs a number 1 wide receiver to throw to. So I think those are your focal points. But top of the list, got to have a pass rusher, got to upgrade your linebacking core, and you need a free safety who can erase drives and force turnovers.
I love the Clinton Dix move. That's one that I've been looking at for a few weeks now because I think that would really improve the back end of that defense. I also like a guy like Trey Flowers in New England. There's a proven edge rusher that you can get in there right away. As talented as the defensive front is in this draft, it's hard to expect a rookie to come in and have that kind of impact right away. Even Khalil Mack only had 4 sacks in his rookie season. What do you think they're going to do in free agency overall?
I think free agency is going to be very interesting only because you have so many needs, and then you have Mayock coming in who's a draft guy, so how much space he's going to have in free agency, I think that's going to be more Gruden. But I think that free agency is going to be focused on, and again, improving that defense, because there are going to be some names, and you mentioned Trey Flowers, who I think is also a fine choice to upgrade the defensive line. There are going to be some names in free agency, and I mentioned Clinton Dix. If the Ravens make the mistake of letting C.J. Mosley hit the mark, he can shore up the middle of your defense as an inside linebacker who can drop back in coverage, can rush the quarterback, he can play the run. He can do it all. He's also a captain. So you look at a guy like C.J. Mosley, I would throw the bank at him because then you won't have to worry about that linebacker position for a long time. And a lot of people push back against this because they want to give Brandon Parker a chance. But if you want a not a high end, but just a solid baseline level right tackle, Bobby Matthews, a guy you maybe want to look at from the Chicago Bears, because you really need to give Derek Carr that protection. No longer is the left tackle the only tackle that's dealing with the best edge rushers. Sometimes these edge rushers switch sides. You want to protect Derek Carr on both sides because you don't know what Donald is going to be, especially as the right tackle.
Yeah, and Mo, I agree with you on that one. I like Brandon Parker still, but the key in the NFL is depth. And so, yes, they might have drafted him a little high for everyone's taste, but doesn't mean he's going to go anywhere. It just means that you can always upgrade, and if you can get somebody in there to protect him, it makes a lot of sense. Mo, real quick before we let you go, overall, what's your view on the Mayock hire?
I actually like the Mayock hire. I know a lot of people, anything the Raiders do, they raise an eyebrow and question it, but I really like the fact that he's a draft guy. We all saw it. We all watched him on TV for nearly a decade. I know people go, "Oh, he's a TV guy." What is he? They're going to hire a second-hand guy. You heard about Ryan Grigson. I'm not too worried about that. He's just there to help with the day-to-day activities of a new guy taking on a new position. But I really like the Mayock hire because this is what the Raiders needed. You have 3 first-round picks. You have, I think, 11 in total. You want a guy who knows his draft prospects, who's going to dig in, help the Raiders pick the right guy. Now,
that's right.
Again, the Raiders are coaching at the Senior Bowl, so I think it works out great for them. You have a guy who's a specialist, an expert in this area. This is what you need.
Yeah, and Mo, we love it too here for all the right reasons. Plus, John Gruden is the guy who's running the organization, so it's a different type of position than it was before when Reggie McKenzie was there. Mo, we'll have you on again real soon. We appreciate you being with us.
I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you guys hitting me up again.
All right.
Thanks, Mo.
I got some extra time after the season's over. So.
All right, man. I love it. Mo Moton from Bleacher Report again. And we were just talking about Mike Mayock. We're going to step aside when we come back. Michael Lombardi joins us to talk about Mike Mayock in depth. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
It's Dustin DeHart here with Nova Home Loans. Join me and Aaron Taylor, the
CBS Sports Radio. Callers and guests on the Newsmaker line are brought to you by the Law Office of Michael A. Troiano. Help us talk the Silver and Black. Call us at 702-889-5978. Here's Matt Gutierrez and your host, Scott Gulbranson, on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM.
Welcome back to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas. And we go out now on the attorney Michael Troiano Newsmaker line. We bring in one of our favorite guests, Michael Lombardi. Of course, Michael Lombardi was a senior personnel executive for the Raiders, former GM and VP with the Cleveland Browns, and a special assistant to Bill Belichick in New England with the Patriots, and now the author of the blockbuster bestseller Gridiron Genius, a master class in winning championships and building dynasties in the NFL. And we're going to be talking about the Raiders and their new GM. If you want to understand how this all works and how you build a winner, make sure you pick up Gridiron Genius. You will not read a better book about that. Michael, thanks for joining us here on the Silver and Black today.
I appreciate it, Scott. Thank you for having me. Appreciate all your kind words.
All right. Well, listen, when we talked earlier in the season, when the Raiders were beginning to struggle, we had a conversation about John Gruden and what he would have to do in becoming not just a head coach anymore, but becoming, at that time, the de facto GM. Of course, Reggie McKenzie was still there. He has now been relieved of his duties, and now Mike Mayock has been hired as the new GM. Back then, you said he was going to have to change the way his thought patterns, the way he managed, because no longer was he just a coach, but he was also someone who had looked at player personnel. Is the hiring of Mike Mayock, and we'll talk about him more in depth in a second, but is the hiring of Mayock, Michael, something, is that a good sign, do you think, for where you think John Gruden is headed from a mindset perspective and how he runs this team?
Well, I think, Mike's a hardworking guy. Mike's proven that, every year he was willing to watch millions and millions of tape and go through a bunch of players. And I think in the role that John's looking for, I think Mike is the perfect fit for him. Mike's opinionated. He's strong-minded in his opinions. And he's also working with Paul Gunther, who's one of his closest friends, I think, in the industry, the defense coordinator of the Raiders. And together, I think the three of them will form a partnership. And I think that's ultimately what you want, is you want this partnership between coach, personnel guy, and coaches to formulate the team together.
Right, and of course, this is an unconventional hire, so to speak, because like you mentioned, this is not the typical general manager role. This is not the kind of role you had in Cleveland, and we talked about that in depth before. With Mike Mayock coming on, it's interesting, and you touch on a lot of tenets of leadership in your book, Gridiron Genius. And that's what I looked at when I saw this hire and Mike Mayock coming on. Very unconventional. In fact, I kind of equated it to what you see a little bit in the Silicon Valley, and that is, hey, do something different, disrupt the industry. Now, the NFL, very incestuous with hiring. We know that's just the way it is because of the number of people in the industry and how long they've been together in relationships, of course. With Mike Mayock now coming into this role, what's going to be the biggest challenge for him moving from what he's been doing in just evaluating talent on paper and on television to now doing it in real life and fielding a team?
Well, I think that's the key, is team building, right? So he's going to have to be able to scout inside out, not outside in. Before, he was scouting for all 32 teams, talking about players. He wasn't generating an opinion based on a specific scheme, a specific defense, specific offense. I think he was just evaluating everybody for the league. Now, with his ability and relationship with John, his ability in relationship with Paul Gunther, he'll understand specifically what they want at each position, and then utilizing his skill set, he'll go out and try to find those players that fit those skill sets, scouting inside out, not outside in, which is what I write about in my book.
Right. Now, Michael, one of the things, too, we know a lot of us who watch and, of course, consume a lot of the media that we're part of, we've seen Mike Mayock over the years with his draft analysis and what he does, and it's phenomenal work. I mean, I've been on the conference calls. I've heard all of that. It's amazing for those of us in the industry because he helps us understand a little bit more about these players. Now, as you mentioned, now you go to real life, now you go to team building. Is it going to be difficult for him you only have, in essence, a month and a half before the start of free agency. He's now got to be able to understand from the coaching staff, from the scouting staff that's in place in Oakland, about current players and about free agents and all of that. How hard is that going to be for him to get up to speed in a short period of time?
I don't think it'll be very difficult for him. I mean, obviously he pays attention to the league. He studies the league week in and week out, so he knows it. Plus, he's sitting there. And remember, John is still going to be the straw that stirs the drink. I mean, John's going to want to have certain positions that he handles. I think it's going to be Mike's going to supplement what John thinks and give him maybe a different variable, a different idea, perhaps some player that maybe John didn't know about. So between them, I think all of them as the coaches are going to formulate this opinion. I think this is what the partnership can do for them, and, that's what they're going to do moving forward. It isn't just Mike's going to walk in and say, hey, I really want to sign this player because X, Y, or Z. I think it's a collaborative effort, and I think between the collaboration of the two and understanding what they need, he'll be able to do that rather quickly.
Okay. Well, Mike, what about, this year with the Raiders, and you've been very vocal about kind of their struggles and what was going on there. Now they come out of this season, there's a lot of folks who continue to be very skeptical of where John Gruden is going, what he did, and some of the moves they made up. The Khalil Mack trade is the Khalil Mack trade. It's not going to change. People's mindsets are pretty strong on that one. But how long will this take, do you think? What's fair, I should say, when you start looking at what John Gruden's going to do from a player personnel perspective, now in concert with Mike Mayock, for fans out there, when should they start to say, hey, look, I can start to see the fruits of their labor? Is it quickly? Is it after this draft and what we see there? Or is it going to be a year or two down the road?
Oh, I think progress has to be made, and I think you've got to see progress. Everybody's level of what progress looks like is different, but I think the Raiders certainly, and I think you saw they made progress during the season. There were some times where their offensive line got depleted and they couldn't really compete, but I think progress is something you need to see year in and year out as you're building, and I think these draft picks will certainly be important towards that progress.
Well, we also heard at Mike Mayock's press conference, Michael, that they asked him specifically about Derek Carr. Of course, everyone's sort of in this position of, well, we don't know what John Gruden actually thinks of Derek Carr. Does he think of him as a long-term franchise quarterback? And, of course, Mike Mayock, I think, gave the right answer, which is like, hey, I just got here. I got to sit down and evaluate. Can you read anything into that, or is that simply just a player personnel guy saying, hey, look, I'm not going to give you an answer because I haven't seen him enough yet?
Well, I think, look, we can all evaluate talent on the outside, but until you get in the building and you hear who was hurt, what he was playing with, what the week in and week out dealings are of that player, you really don't know. And it's really unfair for anybody to give an opinion. You walk in and say, I don't like the guy. Well, maybe you don't really know the situation,
Yeah.
It's really not fair. Like, give him a breath of air, let him go through, let him listen to what the game plans were, what was his reads, what he got better at, watch practice and see how he competed and see what he did. And we're just looking through a straw on the outside until you get in the building. Maybe he was dealing with, a flu-like symptoms that we didn't know was severe. I don't know whatever the case is, but I think you need to let the guy have his time to go in, evaluate, and move and work from there.
Now, Michael, looking at the Raiders, we know the bad from this year. We understand where the team was lacking. There was areas all over the field, defense, offense, you name it, where they struggled and where they need upgrades. Realistically, if Raider fans listening to the show today out there, realistically, what kind of progress in the NFL with this many draft picks, if they can nail, for example, the three number ones that they have this year and the rest of this draft, realistically, how much improvement can you see from year to year in the NFL? And could Raider fans see the Raiders go from a 4-win season to a 6 or an 8-win season?
I think look at the Colts. Look, every year we see different teams in the playoffs. It's just so obvious that it happens. This year, we see Houston turn their team around and get into the playoffs, win the South. We see the Colts represent the South. We see the Baltimore Ravens come back from a disappointing season and win the North. And, we see the Chicago Bears turn their team around in 1 year and win the North. And the Saints basically, do the same thing. They get back in, even though they were a playoff team last year. Seattle wins 10 games this year out of the playoffs last season. So, look, every year there's 6 new teams in the playoffs, and I think you just have to keep going. I think the Colts are the perfect example. Last year they struggled. They couldn't win games in the fourth quarter. They had leads going in the fourth quarter. They couldn't quite close out. They weren't good enough. And I think this year that's what the Raiders have to strive for, is being able to do that.
All right. Michael Lombardi, former senior personnel executive for the Raiders and, of course, GM of the Browns and special assistant to Bill Belichick, and the author of Gridiron Genius, Masterclass in Winning Championships and Building Dynasties in the NFL. As always, Michael, thank you for giving us the time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thanks, buddy.
Take care now. All right, Michael Lombardi, always a fun interview and insightful, Matt. I agree with what he said there with Mayock. I mean, we haven't gone in depth. We talked about it on one of our podcasts last week after the hiring, but I like this because, again, it is so unusual. It's different. The NFL, Matt, is so incestuous. It's such a, hey, you get fired here, you go get a job somewhere else. The fact that they went out and got Mayock, who already evaluates talent, to me says that they're trying to do it differently. And why not? The Raider organization's been horrible for 20 years.
And they need a guy that can evaluate talent. That wasn't Reggie McKenzie's strong suit coming into the draft, was his talent evaluation. He cleaned up that salary cap issue. He hit on some free agents and did a good job of turning the franchise around.
Right.
Mayock's going to go out there and evaluate these guys and hopefully bring in the best draft class that we've seen in a while.
Yeah, and they have to hit on it, but we'll see how it all goes.
Can't
all right.
miss.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the NFL playoffs this week and where we're at with that. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
The average
CBS Sports Radio.
Hi, this is Steve Wisniewski, and you're listening to the Silver and Black Today.
All right, Steve Wisniewski brings us back in from the break. You're listening to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 11:40 a.m. in Las Vegas, coming to you from the Dollar Loan Center, don'tbebroke.com studios. The Raiders season might be over, but the NFL season continues. And in this segment, we're going to talk a little bit about that because, yes, for Raider fans, it might have ended way too early, as usual, I should say, unfortunately for you. It doesn't mean that the NFL season is over. In fact, the playoffs were really gearing up to be exciting with the matchups that we've seen, and we had at least one really good game yesterday, although scoring has been down, which is interesting, Matt. But the playoffs are in full swing yesterday. The Houston Texans, who I really liked as a team, I was not excited about them in the playoffs, and sure enough, the Colts went down there and beat them. It wasn't close. And then we had the Seahawks and the Cowboys, which turned out to be a nice end of the game. But let's start with the Colts and the Texans. Now, the Colts, on our postgame show, the PG, all year, Tony Cardasco and I have talked about how much we loved the Colts' offensive line. The reason they've had such a good year on offense, in my view, has been because of that offensive line, protected the resurgent.
Weird how that matters.
Yeah, weird how that matters, right? But they have been amazing, not talked about too much, but then you have the defense for the Colts, who has overperformed anything that anybody could have ever expected. That team going down to Houston, again, just dominated them. I think it was experience. I think it was overall just a better defensive play on their end. But what do you like about that Colts team?
You know, first of all, I really thought the Texans would show better yesterday, especially considering the Colts went into Houston just a month ago and beat up on the Texans. I thought, all right, it's a division rival. They're coming back into their house. They're going to show better. But I still had the Colts winning that game. This team, you see this a lot, man. These teams catch fire late in the season, and they carry that momentum into the playoffs. And I think the Colts are that team this year. They've really started to figure things out. Let's not forget that Andrew Luck wasn't 100% to start the year off. He's been out for quite a while now. Finally started to find his rhythm, got his arm strength back up. If you remember at the beginning of the year, they weren't even using him in late game situation to throw in a Hail Mary.
They kind of let him come back on.
Yeah, they babied his arm a bit, and it's paying off now because he looks like he's pretty much back to the Andrew Luck that we all remember coming out of college. But I did have the Colts over the Texans, and I think the Colts can make a big push here going through the playoffs.
Yeah, they and I'm getting some comments on Periscope about nobody wants to see the Colts defense. Nope. Let me tell you something. They are phenomenal. I mean, I think that they really are a team that now, if I'm the Chiefs, especially the Chiefs with the history of the Colts in the playoffs, I do not want them coming to Kansas City and facing us and then knocking us out of the playoffs. Remember that game? God, was it? I can't even remember how long ago it was when the Colts didn't even punt in the game.
Yeah,
when they went to Kansas City and beat them.
And I don't see how this can be any different. The Chiefs couldn't stop the Raiders.
Right.
All right, they can't stop anybody. the last game of the season aside, that was different. But the Chiefs have no defense. Their defense is terrible. The Colts can score on anybody right now, and they're showing that. And the Colts defense has the weapons to be able to shut down. Maybe not shut down. Let's not say shut down, because the Chiefs' offense is legit. They can score. They can move the ball up and down the field. But the Colts can slow them down. And with the offense that the Colts have, I see them going into Kansas City and winning that game.
Well, and it shows you that the Colts, with the offensive line they put together, with that defense, which is a cheap defense, and I say cheap in that those players are playing well above what they're being paid. They've had a really good season. It goes to show you, though, and we're linking this back to Raiders, of course, which is you have to have those elements. You have to have a good defensive line. You have to have a good offensive line that's consistent, that's not overly injured. And then the quarterback, if you have the right quarterback, that quarterback can maneuver, do things that they need to do in that system. And that's what happened with Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck, if you look, they dissected his delivery. He's changed his delivery because of his injury and all that stuff. So I like the Colts. And then the Seahawks, Cowboys, again, the Seahawks, Matt, that was, I think, a full case of just one of the worst coach games I've ever seen.
Yeah, I thought the Seahawks were going to go into Dallas and win that game, and I thought they would do that because of Russell Wilson. And then the Seahawks decided, let's not use Russell Wilson until we absolutely have to, and by then it was too late. And that was, like you mentioned, that was a poorly coached game. It just wasn't, the play calling was not where it should have been. If the run game, and I understand, Seattle is a great running offense. They led the league in rushing this season. But if the run game is not working, and you have a guy like Russell Wilson who's able to make plays with both his arm and his feet, you have to let him do that. And we saw they set up the Cowboys with those runs up the middle in the third quarter, and then they allowed Russell Wilson to get out on those bootlegs. And they completely caught the Cowboys off guard on 2 in a row, and he scored. And then the next drive, they allowed him to throw the ball. Or 2 drives later, allowed him to throw the ball, and he goes right down the field and scores a touchdown.
Well, and you don't even have to throw the ball. I hear this a lot from Raider fans on Derek Carr. He doesn't throw the ball deep enough. You don't have to throw the ball deep. With the spread offenses and what you have to do, yes, you do have to do it occasionally. Don't get me wrong. It's not that you abandon it completely. But to me, Pete Carroll in that offense yesterday and Schottenheimer, Brian Schottenheimer should be fired today. I mean, it was so poorly run.
Carroll just got an extension, though.
Not Carroll, Schottenheimer, his offensive coordinator.
Okay.
Because to me, at that point, all you got to do is spread out a little more, to your point, bootleg, but also quick timing patterns. Quick timing patterns through the middle to the outside and play action.
Yeah.
At least go more play action. And they just didn't do it. I have a friend, Phil, who was down there for the game. He's a big Seahawks fan. And he was texting me during the game. He says, I don't understand what they're doing from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, and
when a fan can see that, I mean, it's pretty evident. I really liked the Seahawks in that game, too. Credit the Cowboys and their defense. Credit Amari Cooper. I know Raider fans want to hate him now that he's gone and he didn't do as well in Oakland as he's doing in Dallas. Has to be consistent, to your point, Matt. But good for him. I mean, I still think that Dak Prescott is overrated, but he did it last night. You got to give him all the credit in the world.
I was a big fan of Coop. I love the AC/DC connection. It's unfortunate that he's not going to have a flourishing career with Derek Carr and the Raiders. I mean, it's too bad to see. But my biggest thing on Cooper has always been his footwork. He has some of the best footwork in the NFL, in my opinion. And you saw that a few times yesterday, where it's not anything that jumps off the video. It's these subtle little moves that he gives. And he's so quick from stop to start to get back to full speed, it's impossible to cover him in those situations. And that's how he finds himself so open so often. And like Mo mentioned earlier, you got to target the kid. You can't go through an entire game, Raiders, and target him one time. He's too talented for that.
That's right. All right, we're going to step aside when we come back at the top of the top of the hour.
Sports playoffs, man. We got a lot to cover.
And
there.
we got predictions for 2019. I want to hear yours too. 702-889-5978. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m. Stay where you are.
The most in-depth coverage of the Silver and Black as they set their sights on Las Vegas for 2020. Live from the CBS Sports Radio 1140 studios, it's Silver and Black Today. Join the conversation by calling 702-889-5978. Now, here's Scott Gulbransen and Matt Gutierrez.
That's right, I am Scott Gulbransen. At least today, I've decided to be myself.
Who are you normally?
I don't, that's a good question. It's very...
He's that guy.
Now I have to be pensive and look like, I'm thinking.
That guy.
Pensive. Do you know what pensive means out there? I hope you do. I'm sure you do. We need to learn the language again in our country. All right, I'm off the soapbox. All right, we're back. We're talking football. And in this segment, Matt and I, we're gonna talk about predictions for 2019. Yes, it's early. We get that. But just give us a break. For like the 80th year out of the last 100, the Raiders aren't in the playoffs. So we're filling time with things that we think are interesting. And if you want to call in and give us your predictions, they can be wild. They can involve aliens. We're right next to Area 51, so who knows? We got some strange people out there. But anyway, we're going to go with some predictions here, and we're just kind of rolling with these. They're nothing that we kind of wrote down or prepared for or anything like that. We're just kind of going to roll with it. So, Matt, okay, I'm going to give you my first prediction.
All right, let's hear it.
This is a doozy, so you got to be ready, okay? In 2019, Derek Carr will be the quarterback of the Raiders.
Wow, that's going out on a limb, Scott.
No, I'm just saying, we talked about it earlier. I don't think they're going to trade him. I just don't. The draft class isn't right there.
Trade him for what?
Well, yeah, we talked about this, right?
Trade him for what?
Right. So he's going to be the quarterback. And if you disagree with me, you can call in again, and I'll tell you you're wrong. 702-889-5978. But, Matt, I just think that he will be the quarterback at least one more year. We'll see what happens, maybe longer. And to me, that is the most solid prediction you can make because I just don't see them doing anything else.
Derek Carr will be a Las Vegas Raider.
There you go.
Just to piggyback on your prediction.
Which will technically be in 2019 because once the season's over.
That's what we're calling him. But...
yeah, I think we got to decide that. I think maybe going into the draft, we should start calling them that. As soon as we know where they're playing next year.
Yeah. Well, here's my predictions. Funny you said. Nice segue. Well done.
I try.
I know. You're so good at this. My prediction is this farce of a lawsuit will fall apart. Oakland will, maybe not with open arms, but will welcome the Raiders back into the fold, and they will finish out their Bay Area tenure in the Coliseum.
In the Coliseum where it all started, kind of. Okay, no, I buy that. The talk, as ridiculous as it is, the talk of more games in London continues to bubble up with folks that I'm talking to. And that's a little bit, I don't know. And San Antonio seems to not be in the equation anymore, although I still have some people who talk about it. But I just don't know.
The expense with London.
Exactly. And you know what? This might be the case where Mark Davis just has to say, listen, yeah, it sucks to have to pay somebody money, especially probably an exorbitant amount, for someone who's suing you in court.
Yeah.
But you know what? For the sake of the fans, for the sake of continuity for this point until you move everybody this time next year, just do it. I mean, I think that's where they're going to end up, Matt. So I agree with you on that one. I think it's the best option.
It is. It's the cheapest option for sure. I mean, no matter what they're going to end up paying in rent next season at the Coliseum, it's still going to be the better option. Going to London 4, 5, 6, however many times a season is an insane expense because it's not just jumping on your charter and bringing your gear with you to Wembley or wherever and playing a game. You've got to move the entire organization out there for the game. So many people that work for this team on game day that have to get there. That's all on the Raiders. That's an expense to have to do that many times. You're not flying down to San Diego. You're going all the way across the pond to London. That's a big deal. Just logistically, it's a nightmare.
And plus,
the only time they do those games now, you have a bye week following.
And plus, people like Art and Key need to gain weight, and the food sucks over there. Like what? Okay, fish and chips, I'll give them that. You know,
I guess.
But mincemeat pie and all this other crap. No, we don't need that. So good prediction. My prediction is. And we're going to, in the next segment, Kelly Kriner from silverandblacktoday.com will join us on this. My prediction is the Raiders in 2019 all 3 first-round draft picks will be defense.
I like that, and it should
and Moton,
be.
He mentioned it too.
It should be.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, that's what they need the most.
Yeah, they need. He talked about linebacker. They need linebackers like no other. I mean, they haven't had a good name the last good linebacker they had. What, Kirk Morrison, maybe?
Kirk Morrison.
And
yeah.
he was middle of the road. It's not like he was a world beater or anything like that, but Derek Burgess had a couple good moments here and there.
It's been bad.
Who else?
For a long time.
I cannot think of a really good linebacker that they had.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been terrible there. They need to improve the pass rush, obviously. They're never going to replace Khalil Mack. I don't care what anybody says out there. Even if they were able to get Nick Bosa, I don't think you replace a Khalil Mack. He's a generational talent. But they have to address that. There are guys in free agency, and we talked about it earlier, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go after at least a couple of those. One in particular, Jadeveon Clowney. He's a free agent, much better against the pass, or excuse me, against the run than he is as a rusher. But he came out in that MAC class. He was the number 1 overall draft pick. Prediction: they make a move to go after Clowney.
Interesting. Okay, so that's another prediction. Here's my next prediction. My next prediction, and I'm just being snarky, of course, today. My next prediction is that Raider fans will not let go of the Khalil Mack trade next year. It doesn't matter if they nail all three. If they got Quinnen Williams, they got everybody in the first round, and they nail the second round, they nail the draft, they sign great free agents, it'll all 50% of fans will still come back to, but we give away Khalil Mack.
I don't dispute that at all. That's always going to be the issue, and I think rightfully so. I mean, you have to let it go. It's over. It's done. He's never coming back unless Chicago does the unthinkable. But
they do a Raiders.
But it was a bad move. When you look at your personnel, it was a bad move considering you were the worst team in the NFL when it came to quarterback pressures. So, it's okay to be upset about it, to say, it wasn't a good move, but you gotta move past it. It is what it is now.
And that's
it's gone.
And that's what I said. There's some folks on our YouTube chat saying, but we gave away Matt. Oh, and we didn't take Derwin James. Oh, absolutely true. I would have loved to have Derwin James, no doubt about it. I thought they were going to take him. But there's no sense in looking back. It doesn't help anything. All you're going to do is make yourself more miserable, because if Khalil Mack somehow wins a Super Bowl this year or next year, whatever it may be, I don't think that'll happen. But if he did, then what are you going to do? You're going to say, oh, look, we would have had a Super Bowl? No, the Raiders were not that good. And as bad as I still think the trade is, it is what it is. So you have to move forward. So that's my prediction. One other prediction I want to make, Matt, before I toss it back to you for your next one, is I say that the Raiders will win 7 or 8 games. They will improve by 3 games.
Oh, that was my next prediction.
Was it?
It was. So,
are you just saying that, or
no? I was literally writing down.
Wait a minute, though. Didn't you say last year that they would win 10 games?
I did. I also said they were going to win 10 games with Khalil Mack on the roster. With
the caveats.
The roster opening day was vastly different than what it was when I wrote that 4-piece article on what their season would look like.
Their quarters of the season, yes.
So Derek Carr's rookie season, 3 wins. Goes from 3 to 7 wins the next season. From 7 to 12 after that. Then you had the unrest, drop back down to 6, and now 4. We have some consistency there now with the coaching staff. Okay, the offense isn't going to change. You're going to add pieces to that offense. By the way, go out and re-sign Jared Cook. Don't miss on that one. You're going to add pieces to that offense. You're going to find yourself a receiver. Okay, they're obviously going to upgrade the defense. You can't have this kind of draft capital available to you and not improve that defense. This will be a better team next year. They're going to go 500, which was the plan all along for this rebuild. Be a 500 team before you make it to Vegas. 2020, the Raiders are a playoff contender.
Wow.
There you go.
The way the NFL goes, and we heard it when we were talking to Lombardi earlier, things can change very quickly. Okay, as bad as the Raiders look this year, things can trade. When you're talking about nailing the draft, nailing free agency, even though the free agency pool this year is not that great, depending on position, a lot of B-level guys, basically depth guys. Things can change quickly, so I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think, though, to be realistic for fans out there, I would say, hey, if you can improve by 3 to 4 games next year, that's good progress, and it could be more. Now, My next prediction for 2019 is that the team will release the fact that their new stadium in Las Vegas here will be called Southwest Airlines Stadium.
Southwest
Airlines.
Think Southwest is going to put up that kind of money?
I do. I'm making that prediction.
I like that. This is a major hub for Southwest, right?
And they fly right over the damn thing.
Could you imagine the Southwest logo over the top of that coming in on every flight from everywhere?
Well, and with the deal, and we'll talk about it a little bit later too, with the deal with Caesars Entertainment this week with the NFL, and the Raiders already had a deal in place from November with Caesars Entertainment, that's not a bad bet either, because Caesars is coming up big in the NFL, and it's the local town, it's the local business, right? So they might do it. I'm not sure yet, depending on how the NFL warms to gaming. The NFL, despite the fact that they named this thing with Caesars, it doesn't include sports betting. It doesn't include the hotels. So the NFL's still keeping a foot out, like we talked about on the Sports Adrenaline show.
Which they're not going to be able to do in a year.
No, I don't think so either.
Once they're all in on Vegas, again, another pun. Once they're all in on Vegas, there's nothing they can do to stop it. I mean, they're bringing the draft here. What, are you going to pretend that the casinos aren't there? Come on.
No, you've embraced it. It's too late. All right, well, we're going to step aside, pay some bills here for a few minutes. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Kelly Kriner. He's the silverandblacktoday.com draft analyst. He did our very early mock draft for the 2019 draft. Will the Raiders go all defense? Will they go offense at all? We're going to ask him. We're going to talk to him about that and go through his entire list. So make sure you stay tuned. We'll talk draft right after the break. You're listening to the Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Join Mark Patrick Hypnosis and lose
of Michael Troiano. The only way to take Silver and Black Today with you is with the radio.com app. Download it today and search CBS Sports Radio 1140 in Las Vegas and listen to us anytime, anywhere.
Bright Light City, gonna set my soul on fire. Las Vegas. This is Silver and Black Today coming to you from Las Vegas, a line from the famous Elvis Presley song, Viva Las Vegas. But we are going to now switch gears, and we're going to talk, yes, already NFL draft. And to do that, we've brought in our draft analyst from Silver and Black Today, and that is Kelly Kriner. Kelly will break down his picks. If you haven't read his story yet, go over to silverandblacktoday.com, and you'll see what Kelly wrote. Kelly, welcome, man. First time on the show.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. Good to finally be on.
And you're from Indiana, not Kentucky.
Yeah.
I said Kentucky earlier, so I apologize.
Yeah, that's something you really need to get straight. It's blasphemy back home.
We were getting grilled off air about how when you're from the area, man.
Yeah,
you can't be messing around with that.
No, it's sort of like people here from Vegas. You said, "Oh, you're from Nevada. You're from Reno."
Yeah, exactly.
No,
yeah,
not going to happen.
Actually, that's a very good analogy because that's pretty much the way it is. I mean, that's the level of love that's around back home.
That is okay, Kelly. So if we look at the Raiders, okay, everyone knows about the multitude of draft picks that this team will have in 2019 and into 2020. You did our first mock draft. So let's talk through some of those guys that you did and said that the Raiders will go pick. And at the top of the list in round number 1, you have a guy that I love and would love to see the Raiders go out and get, and that is the defensive tackle of Alabama, Quinnen Williams. Tell us why defensive tackle first and not edge rusher, defensive end.
Mainly, it's just how I think the draft's going to fall in the first few picks. Bosa's one unless Arizona decides to trade out for anything, so that's your first edge gone. I think Allen goes number 2, and he would be I think a very good option for the Raiders as an edge player. And 3, I think the Jets are going to make a big push for Le'Veon Bell, so they're going to go Jonah Williams at number 3 because that offensive line, you're not spending that much money on a running back with that offensive line. So when it breaks down to it, you've got a chance to get a guy who could be the best player in this draft at 4 in Quinnen Williams, or you can get the 3rd or 4th best edge rusher. I think it's just a value to where you get a guy that you can plug in from day one.
Well, and then also, too, I think Raider fans, there's no doubt, that they need edge rushers. I wouldn't argue that at all. At the same time, improving the middle, right, is not a bad thing because, in essence, if you have that big push and you have a good rotation between him and Hurst and Hall and if Eddie Vanderdoes comes back and some of those guys in there as well, then suddenly that actually frees up the edges a little more. And so you don't have to have Khalil Mack. You just have to have a good player out there, right?
Yeah, they say, you need edge rush. You need pass rush. It doesn't matter where it comes from. There's a reason Aaron Donald doesn't come off the edge, and he's the most disruptive force in football.
Right.
If you get a pass rush from the middle, from the edge, you have to get the pass rush. And Williams and Hurst up the middle is just going to I don't see how that does not create a consistent pass rush.
And what happens if something crazy happens and Oliver's off the board at number 3 instead? Do you think they go after, or Williams is off, do you think they go after Ed Oliver?
It's going to, Oliver's biggest thing is going to be when he weighs in at the combine because everybody's freaking out about him being a little smaller on the smaller side. He's even smaller than Aaron Donald was coming out, and Aaron Donald's biggest issue everybody's worried about was size. I think you see Ed Oliver fall a little bit. He could, he was the number 1, number 2 pick all year, beginning of the year. You're seeing now he could fall anywhere from 7 to 10. If Williams is gone, Oliver is an option, but I think they'd go Farrell and go edge in that situation.
That's a good point. Now, in the first round, you have at number 28 currently is where the Raiders pick, I think, is still, number 24 is a kid I like a lot. Cornerback DeAndre Baker out of Georgia. What are what's the upside with him? And there's no doubt they need help in the defensive backfield still because, I'm sorry, Rashawn Melvin and some of the guys on the outside, why am I drawing a blank on them? The other cornerback, because they're so bad.
Well,
forgettable.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you know you need somebody when you don't remember who you have.
But Kelly, what is it about Baker that you like and you think puts him in the first round for the Raiders?
He's just a great football player. He's not super athletic. He's not flashy. He's not going to tear up the combine like a Greedy Williams or somebody like that. But when you watch him on tape, he just knows how to play football. He gets every ounce out of everything he has. He knows where to be. He knows who to play. And if you look at it, Conley's going to be the number one. So you've got a guy like Baker as your number two. I mean, he's going to be I think he'll be a solid number two right off the bat with the chance to even, improve to where he could be a shutdown.
You mentioned Greedy Williams, and that name scares me only because we've seen the Raiders historically do some really weird things in the draft. We saw it last year. With the Colton Miller pick, where nobody really saw that coming, and out of nowhere they've got a left tackle. They love their athletes in Oakland. They love those defensive backs. I mean, the Raiders have a long tradition of some really solid DBs back there. Any chance that they just buck the trend and go right after a DB at number 4?
I don't think so, but I mean it's one of those things like you're saying. He is going to blow up the combine. He's going to look like $1 million. His biggest issue is tracking the ball, which is something you're not going to see unless you watch the tape. His physical abilities, I mean, no question. The person that would scare me more being the physical freak they might take at 4 is Rashawn Gary out of Michigan. And as a Michigan fan who's watched every snap he's had, I mean, getting off the bus, he is a number 4 pick. But when you watch him in the games, he just disappears from time to time. And the production's not there you see the ability, but there's just not the production behind it.
So, Kelly, then as we go on through your mock draft, the final pick in the first round for the Raiders at number 28, a guy I really like, and you have here, is an edge rusher, Montez Sweat from Mississippi State. SEC guy, obviously, I think people don't pay attention as much to Mississippi State, especially if you're just a casual college fan and more of a pro fan. What is it about him that you think he can bring to the Raiders and that huge need at edge?
He's just a monster on the field. I mean, like I said, most people don't watch Mississippi State. I watched a lot of SEC football this year for, financial purposes, I'll put it that way. And he's in there every play. It's his hand usage is, amazing. It's his biggest issues. He's stiff, which that's going to turn a lot of people off because everybody wants that bendy, flexible edge rusher now.
Oh yeah.
But he can overpower you. He's got a great first step. He's got counter on counter. I mean, he's not the most flexible guy out there, but I mean, he will find a way to get to the quarterback. He had 22 sacks the last 2 years in the SEC, and I mean that you go up against NFL level talent every Saturday.
No. Go ahead, Matt.
What you don't have in there is a linebacker. Yeah. We've talked about on this show forever. No linebacker going in the first round for the Raiders this year. That's a need with this team. They need 3 linebackers. They probably need 6 linebackers because they got to have some depth there. Is there a shot that they go after one in the first round?
Depending how the draft falls, they definitely could. I had him taking Devin Bush in the second round. He could definitely
good segue, Matt.
He could definitely go into the end of the first round. Mack Wilson may or may not be in the draft. His mother said he's going back to school. That really hurt this linebacker class because you've got LSU's Devin White, who's if he gets past Cincinnati, I'll be shocked. He just screams Cincinnati Bengal. After him, with Mack Wilson being out, Bush is probably your next best linebacker, and I think you could get him in the second round. You definitely, I think, will be able to get him at the end of that first, so he is definitely a possibility.
Well, it's funny you say he screams Cincinnati Bengal when their system was built around Paul Gunther, who's now in Oakland.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them going after a guy like that, again, if he falls that far.
Yeah, I don't see any way Devin White would fall that far.
All right, and you had Devin Bush going to the Raiders at number 35, round 2, edge first round, second round, which is almost the same thing depending if he falls. Then in round 3, I'll run through a couple of these because we have about a minute and 15 seconds left. Greg Dortch, wide receiver out of Wake Forest, going in the third round at number 66. J.R. Reed, a safety, another guy from Georgia at the 100th pick overall. Jordan Jones, linebacker out of Kentucky, on the 5th round. In round 6, Caleb Wilson, the tight end out of UCLA. I think he's actually a sleeper. And then Jalen Smith, a guy I want to talk about with you. You had him going to the Raiders in round 7. I know it's round 7, but I think he fell a lot due to a few factors. But he's got talent, and he could be a steal.
Yeah, well, he just got a Senior Bowl invite, so he will not be there at 7. He will get seen out there now. People will see the talent.
Who's the coaching staff out there?
Yeah.
You go,
that's the Senior Bowl. We'll see. Yeah, but it all falls. But for you, there's so many folks. What I want to do, we have. We're about out of time, aren't we? Kelly Kriner. We'll bring you back on. We got to talk a lot more about the draft in the offseason. Thanks for coming in, brother.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, guys.
All right. That is Kelly Kriner, the draft analyst for silverandblacktoday.com. We're going to step aside. When we come back, we have Matt's Audible segment where I think he's going to talk a little more playoffs. You're listening to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
Dollar Loan Center guarantees the best rates, and now
This is Governor Brian Sandoval.
CBS Sports Radio.
This portion of Silver and Black Today is powered by the law office of Michael Troiano.
This is Mark Bedane, president of the Raiders. You're listening to Silver and Black Today.
Welcome back, everybody, to Silver and Black Today. It might be the offseason for the Raiders, but there is no offseason for Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m., coming to you live from the Dollar Loan Center, don'tbebroke.com studio in Las Vegas. This is the segment of the show where we hand it over to Matt. He calls his audible, which means we don't know what he's going to talk about, what he's going to bring up, but it's his shot, his segment. So, Matty, take us away, brother.
We don't have time for all that today, man. We've got playoffs. We got playoffs going on right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our earlier segment where we were talking about the Colts, talking about the Cowboys. Let's move on to, since everybody in Raider Nation just can't get enough of the Khalil Mack talk, let's move on to the Bears. Bears and Eagles. That game, I think, is one that everybody's going to have fun watching because you've got this intrigue with the Bears. Can Mitchell Trubisky be the game manager they need him to be? What is Khalil Mack going to do? How many strip sacks are we going to see him get today? And then you've got the Eagles coming in off the Super Bowl win last year with Nick Foles. Why do they even have Carson Wentz anymore? That's my question. They can't win with him. They're not winning with Wentz. They're winning with Foles.
He can't stay on the field. I mean, that's the thing, too. This game is exciting to me. I think actually almost every playoff game this year so far has been good. I mean, the Colts destroyed the Texans for the most part, but we have the Chargers and Ravens starting up here. But to your point about the Bears, they're so much fun to watch. Yes, Khalil Mack changed the scope of their season because that defense just got better. When you add one player to an already talented group that is just
elevated everybody on that roster.
It elevated everybody, so that's what they needed. And I like them. It's just a matter of can the Bears and Trubisky on offense maintain the clip to get them through the playoffs? To me, that's the big question.
This is such a Bears game tonight. It's going to be crazy windy in Chicago. There's a chance of rain. It's going to be in the mid-30s. This game screams Chicago Bears playoff football. I can't wait to watch it. I think the Bears come out on top in this game. I think the Bears defense is scary. You mentioned earlier, points are a little down from the games the last couple of days, right? Or from yesterday. Of course they are. It's playoff time. That's what happens.
Yes.
That's what happens. Defenses win championships. We hear that old cliche all the time, but it rings true so often. Points are going to be down because defenses step up, especially in games like this where it's colder. Baltimore today, weather looks great, but it is colder. You're not going to have teams going up and down the field. Expect Baltimore to come out on top. I want to see, and I know this is going to kill Raider Nation out there. I want to see the Chargers win this game for a couple of reasons. Phillip Rivers deserves better in his career. He really does. I mean, I always go back to the whole Dan Marino thing, even though Dan Marino had a better career than Rivers, and Marino did make it to a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, he faced Montana and the Niners. Nobody was beating them. But, a guy like that, you want to see have some kind of playoff success at some point in his career. And although he did make it to an AFC Championship game, they didn't get beyond that and haven't done much since. Also, it's new blood, right? It's good to see. Man, if I got to see the Patriots in another Super Bowl, I'm not going to watch. It's Alabama Clemson again. Sick of seeing the same thing. Show me some new blood in there.
Yeah, it is. And I think, to your point about defenses, I think it's changed, and you still have to have a good defense to win in the NFL. You just don't have to have the best defense. And I'm sorry, the Kansas City Chiefs have an awful defense, and I still think they have a shot to win the Super Bowl.
I don't think the Chiefs have any shot at the Super Bowl because their defense is so bad. Because when you need to really buckle down in a game and make that play, the Chiefs don't have that. They don't have the team on the defensive side of the ball to be able to make that play. You saw the Eagles do it last year against Tom Brady, no less. They were able to make the play to win the game. How are the Chiefs going to do that? I basically see the offense going right down the field and taking it from them.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the last few years, I mean, going back to last year, of course, you had the Eagles. Their defense was good, not great. Patriots, same thing in 2017. The Patriots' defense was actually kind of middle of the road there. And then the Broncos defense in 16 was really, really good,
But,
as was the Patriots was much better in 15 when they won as well.
Look at the Super Bowl against the Falcons, though, the Patriots. Would they give up 3 points in the second half?
Yeah. They played good.
They completely turned it around and
Right.
shut that team down.
Right.
It was the defense that made the difference.
It was.
When has the Chiefs' defense done anything this season?
No, it's their big Achilles heel, which is one of the reasons, and I know we're going to talk about some of the predictions now, too. And that's where I think, if we look at all of this, Matt, and where things are going with the playoffs, to me, the team, I know it's because of yesterday and everybody's on the bandwagon, but we've been saying it here and on the PG all season long. The way the Colts are playing on defense and offense, I like them going into Kansas City and beating the Chiefs, even though I just said the Chiefs could win the Super Bowl. And then I see whoever wins the Ravens game. I think the Ravens, if the Ravens win, they go beat the Patriots. Okay?
Okay, so let's go to next week.
Yeah.
You've got Colts going to Kansas City. Who's your winner?
I'll take the Colts.
I've got the Colts as well. You've got the Ravens going to New England.
New England.
I've got the Ravens.
I do too.
All right, so go over to the NFC then. Bears at Rams. Do you have the Bears beating the Eagles, first of all? Let's go
Yes,
there.
I do.
Okay.
I
do as well.
I actually bet that game.
Okay, Bears-Rams.
Rams.
I've got the Bears, man.
Do you?
I've been saying
them at
that.
home.
If you go back and listen, find the tapes. Find the tapes. Go back and listen. I've been saying for about 3 or 4 weeks now that the Bears are going to go to L.A. in the playoffs, and they're going to beat the Rams. And then you've got the Cowboys going to New Orleans in what I think is going to be the worst game of the playoffs, because I think the Saints are just going to completely
It's going to be a drubbing.
destroy the Cowboys.
I agree.
And they're hard to beat in the Dome, man. They really are.
They are.
All right, so let's go to the championship weekend. You're going to have the Bears in New Orleans. Well, you've got the Rams.
I got the Rams.
Either way, New Orleans is hosting the game.
Yeah, so if the Bears play the Saints in your scenario, who you got there?
I still got the Saints, man, not because of Drew Brees, although that offense is fantastic. They have a defense.
Oh, yeah.
The Saints have a defense.
Saints defense.
Everybody
yes.
I think people forget about how
Unheralded
good their defense is because
Absolutely.
Drew Brees throws for 8,000 yards every day and 106 touchdowns. Their defense can stop anybody out there. I don't think that the Bears have enough on offense, and again, I have the Bears going to New Orleans. I don't think that the Bears have enough on offense to be able to get past the Saints defense, especially in the Dome. And we all know what that offense is like at home in the Dome. It's a better offense there than on the road.
Right. So I have my scenario is different. Is I have the Rams beating the Bears in Los Angeles, and then I have the Rams going to New Orleans and in a shootout lose. I think the Rams' year is next year. I don't know why. I just get the feeling that as great as they played this year, I think next year is going to be the year for them. So I have on that side, I have NFC champion being the Rams. The Saints. You have the Saints
I have
too.
the Saints
we just
as well.
have different opponents.
So then we have
The two AFC games.
the Colts going into Baltimore, right? Is that both of our picks? The Colts going to Baltimore for the AFC Championship game?
Yes.
I like the Colts,
I
man.
do too.
Is that crazy?
We're there.
Is that crazy? The Colts,
I know. And then,
who have just made this incredible push over the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season. Actually, I think I might have started with the Raiders game. Well, if you remember that game, that was a tie game going into the fourth, and the Colts ended up winning by 14.
Yes.
And they have not stopped since.
And it's so funny because we have Raider fans on our Periscope stream saying the Colts are scary good. This is Mike and Callie. We should have re-signed Autry. Of course, it comes back to what we should have done as a Raider team, as Raider fans, is what they say. Yeah, no. And to me, no.
Double-digit sacks, doesn't he?
Yes, and I just like, and who would have known? I mean, they got lucky with him.
Good old Nico.
But I just like the way this team lines up against everybody in the AFC. I think their defense is good enough to compete with the Ravens in Baltimore. I also think that their offense, I don't think the Ravens' offense, despite the rookie quarterback and being exciting to watch, I just think you get to the pressure of an AFC championship game, even at home, is going to be a lot for them. And I like Andrew Luck in that scenario, Matt.
I agree, man.
So I see the Colts winning the Super Bowl.
Colts winning the Super Bowl. I've got
Imagine
the Saints. I've got the Saints. So that's where the luck ends. You like that? You see what I did there?
I saw what you did. That's pretty stellar. That's pretty stellar. I got to give you credit on that.
So the game is in Atlanta, right?
Yep.
The Saints are very comfortable playing in Atlanta. They play there every single season. It's in a dome. It's on the fast track. I think, come on, man. If the Saints are playing in Atlanta, you know it's going to be very, very gold and black heavy in that stadium. It's not very far from New Orleans to get to Atlanta. So I think you're going to have a Saints partisan crowd in there, and when they get inside those domes, man, they can ball. And I just think that they have too much offense and just enough defense.
Well, you can't
get over the hump and beat the Colts.
I will give you this. I was torn on it. I'm just going with the hot team at this point. But beating Drew Brees in probably his last opportunity to win a Super Bowl will be the most difficult task I think any team's going to have if it's the Saints. So I don't disagree with you. I think that's going to, when you see the odds, if this is all goes down like we think it will, and it was those two teams, that's exactly how it would go. I just think there's a good opportunity for us to not see the Patriots in a Super Bowl for a long time, and I'm sure that's playing into my prediction as well as the Colts getting there.
I don't even want to think about that.
But we'll see. And then the Colts, man, the thing about the Colts, and Corey Sanford, our loyal listener, said this, is they have a lot of cap space. So we're going to step aside. When we come back, we're going to give our postseason awards for the Raiders. You're listening to the Silver and Black today here on CBS Sports Radio, 1140 a.m.
What happened? You used to go hours.
And this station.
CBS Sports Radio.
This is Silver and Black Today, live on CBS Sports Radio 1140. Here's your host, Scott Gulbranson.
Welcome back to Silver and Black Today here on CBS Sports Radio 1140 AM. Don't forget, check out the website, silverandblacktoday.com. You can also subscribe to the on-demand version of this radio show and our podcast by going to iTunes, Spotify, we stream there, SoundCloud, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Also YouTube, which is increasingly a popular channel for folks listening to this show and to our podcast. Make sure you do that. Subscribe. Give us a rating if you would. We'd like a positive one. We have a couple negative ones out there, but they're all based on some personnel issues. So it's all good. But thanks for coming back. Now we're going to shift gears, and we're going to talk, kind of sum up the season, Matt, for all of us to talk about some Raider awards. And we're going to start, and I'm going to ask you to go first here, is if you're going to give the Raiders an MVP for 2018 in a down season, who is it?
Oh, man. An MVP. That would indicate good play. And there wasn't much of that out there.
Right. At times.
Jared Cook.
Okay.
I've got to give it to Jared Cook. I
fair.
think he was the most consistent guy on that team from start to finish. He had 1,000 yards receiving as a tight end. He's
96.
Yeah, well, I'll call it 1,000. He's right there. He's right there.
Yep.
And he was the go-to guy for Carr a lot of times. That and I mean Jalen Richard with all of the dump offs underneath. But I would have to give it to Jared Cook because I just think he had the most consistent season, and he was oftentimes the best player on the field for the Raiders offense.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think that's a fair pick. I picked. Are you ready for this? I love it. I'm watching. I'm going to watch the chat. Let's see it light up right now. Derek Carr.
That's fine. I mean, that's
now first half of the season, not at all. But 4,049 yards, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. I call it 9 because of Jared Cook.
Raiders, ironic.
I know exactly. Raiders a record for passing and for the completions in a row.
Yeah.
But I had as an associate MVP, I had Jared Cook too.
There you go.
Because I think, again, 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns, and his presence on the field when he was rolling, that offense moved.
Yeah. Again, re-sign him.
Yeah, I
agree. Don't let him go.
I agree 100%. Okay, for the Raiders, Matt, comeback player of the year.
Do I already know where you're going with
Conley?
this?
Is it Joseph?
Can they be considered comeback players?
I think Conley came because of his knee, but
he
who's
never played. How can you be a comeback player if you didn't play? that has always
came back from injury.
But it wasn't Adrian Peterson comeback player of the year after his
This is just for.
But he didn't miss any time.
Yeah,
he got hurt in the last game of the year and then played in the first game. How can you be comeback when you never left? So I don't know.
Joseph? Who's your pick? You got to pick somebody.
I don't know, man. Comeback player of the year.
Yeah, somebody who was either coming off a bad year or was. I just named Joseph. That Joseph is not my pick, by the way. But to me, it just makes a lot of sense. If it's a guy who didn't play well last year, is coming back from injury, is coming back from anything.
I honestly can't think of a single one, man. I can't think of anybody.
Okay, that's fair.
I guess by default you could go with Conley because he did miss pretty much the entire season and played well this year, but I don't know that anybody played well enough to.
Oh, contraire, mon frere.
If you say Doug Martin,
comeback player of the year, Doug Martin.
I knew you were. That's why I tried to avoid that.
And
I knew you were going to do that.
And everybody knows our
comeback player. Come on.
Wait. Stop here. Let me give you the numbers. Doug Martin, 24th in the league in rushing. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's not like first in the league. Don't get me wrong.
32 teams.
723 yards. Okay. 720. Hey, look, I said during the preseason, if Doug this is when I thought Marshawn Lynch was going to play too.
Right.
I said if Doug Martin gets between 600 and 700 yards, I will pull that clip. So
but that's a complimentary number to a guy that's getting over 1,000 yards in Marshawn Lynch. That was the hope. To have 700 and be the lead runner is not.
But under the circumstances, I think it's his most yards since 2015 when he had 1,400. Lynch was injured, so I'm right. I've been with my guy Doug Martin all year, so I'm gonna choose him as my comeback player of the year. Now,
I got a couple fun ones if you want, real quick.
Okay.
So just because you already threw Doug Martin out there, Doug Martin was my too little, too late award winner because he really did nothing that mattered until the end of the year, in particular the Denver game on Monday night in Oakland and what we thought could have been the last game in the Coliseum. I've got the Can't Quite Finish award.
Oh.
Come on, you know who that is.
No, who's that?
It's Arden Key.
Oh, yeah.
He just can't get
Gets
there,
to the
man.
quarterback, you just can't bring him down.
Just can't finish.
I know, that's a tough one.
And then I've got my Be Like Mac award because everybody loves Khalil Mack. My Be Like Mac award.
And who's that?
The guy who matched him for rookie sacks.
Oh.
Mo Hurst.
Mo Hurst.
Yeah,
That's
got
a great
4
one.
sacks just like Mac.
Mo Hurst, yeah, absolutely. And actually, Mo Hurst would be my choice for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. I think Mo Hurst was
doubt.
solid. I think he's going to be a legit defensive tackle in this league.
I do too. Now, I had one award that I called the Leadership Award. All right. So it's not just a field goal award, but a guy I think didn't always perform on the field. We now know because of some injuries and stuff like that. But I think a guy that you won't see it in newspaper reports. You won't see it talked about on shows like ours a lot, especially early in the year. But I think Jordy Nelson on that offense, when things were really going bad, my guess is it was not Derek Carr who kept everybody focused and together. I think it was Jordy Nelson.
We should call that the Charles Woodson Award.
Oh, that's a good one. I like
Seawood
that.
was a hell of a leader, man.
Yeah.
He was awesome. He was awesome.
I think to me, Jordy Nelson, and I look forward to Jordy Nelson coming back next year.
I do too.
And having an offensive line and having that system comfortable. He came on at the end of the year. I mean, if you think about it, 63.
Carr started throwing to him.
Yeah, 63 receptions. He was so quiet. He seemed so quiet at the beginning of the year. 729 yards and 3 touchdowns. The touchdowns obviously were lower for a lot of reasons, but almost 800 yards as a receiver when he really didn't get targeted much of the middle of the year, I think is a big deal. So
and you don't think about his season and go, yeah, he was pushing 1,000 yards. It doesn't seem like it because, like you said, it's very quiet. But once Derek Carr started to target his receivers and started to move the ball down the field a little more, you saw the offense take a different shape. It started to look like a legitimate offense, and they're headed in the right direction, man.
They are.
They're going to be better next year. Don't worry.
No doubt about it. All right, Matt. I can't believe the show's over.
Yeah,
but man, thanks for the awards. Thanks for all the work.
Yeah, man. Can't quite
next
finish
week.
award. The too little, too late award. That's my favorite.
All right.
I knew you were going to throw mine in there for some.
Of course you did. That's going to wrap it up, folks. Make sure you stay connected to us. Visit silverandblacktoday.com. Follow us on Twitter at silverblack2day. Check out our podcast and radio show on iTunes, Google Play, and everywhere else, including the YouTube channel. For my co-host, Matt Gutierrez, for engineer David Stepanian, I am Scott Branson, and we appreciate you guys being here, and we'll be back next week, so don't think we're going anywhere, because we're not. We'll be back here. We'll talk Raiders. We'll keep an eye on everything that's going on. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more happening in Raider Nation as time progresses. So for that latest information, you can listen to us here and check out the website. We sign off, but we never say goodbye, Raider Nation. Thanks for listening, and until next week, may the autumn wind always be at your back. See you later.